Is there design in the universe? The religious seem convinced that there is, but they can't back up any of it, can they? Then again, they don't even try to demonstrate it beyond making bald assertions and having wishful thinking. Why? Because that's all they've got. Maybe a few healthy steps back and an appropriately rational outlook on life might help. Just saying. But that's not going to happen because, fifis! This time out, we're going to be looking at yet another really tiny little channel, this time called ChristRighteous, and he's going to, ostensibly anyhow, tell us about the teleological argument. Except he's going to get it all completely wrong, and this is the kind of thing that really ought to make the religious cringe when they see it, because it's so painfully awful in every single way that it betrays the utter ignorance that the theists wallow in all the time. But they don't really have a choice, do they? If they had a clue, they couldn't possibly maintain these absurd beliefs in their tiny little heads. So here we go on the fail train once again. Things are about to get bumpy.
So the other day we talked about how the universe had a beginning, and we discussed how some atheists don't believe in that proposition.
Now, I must have missed your other video, sorry, so I can't really comment on that. However, yes, our particular instantiation of the universe did indeed begin, in a manner of speaking, depending on how you want to define it. It's just not the way that the religious desperately want to believe that it happened, which is why you people get all of this so completely wrong all of the time. There was never a time when the universe didn't exist, because time is part and parcel with the existence of the universe. The Big Bang isn't the creation of the universe that you people want to think, but the expansion out of pre-existing components into what we now refer to as the universe. There was never nothing. I know this guy is going to get absolutely all of that wrong. Not that he cares, but I'm just getting that out right up in front. This is why the religious fail so spectacularly, because they don't do any actual research before they go online and make complete fools of themselves.
But based off of scientific evidence as well as the cosmological argument, it seems to show that the universe did in fact have a beginning.
Wait a minute. What does the cosmological argument have to do with proving anything? That's a bunch of bald assertions desperately trying to get to a religiously comforting conclusion that just doesn't stand up to a moment's critical scrutiny. Like I keep saying, these people, they really aren't concerned with the truth. They just want to get their fifis coddled, and therefore, whatever they have to do to reach their preconceived conclusion, they'll do it because their focus isn't on the truth. It's only on the emotion. And that's kind of sad, isn't it?
So now that we know that the universe had a beginning, thus implying a cause, a timeless, spaceless, and immaterial cause.
And where the hell did you get any of that? Which asshole did you just yank all of that out of? Because this is where we start to see that this guy isn't remotely concerned with objective reality. He just wants to get to his imaginary friend. This is where we see them smuggling in their theology wholesale, because that's ultimately what this is all about. Who cares about actually demonstrating anything when you're trying to bum rush your way to God? It's pathetic. Utterly pathetic. It's ignorance proudly worn like a shield. And that is nothing that you ought to be pretending is worthwhile, yet they do. They always do. What a joke.
Whom would be God, the only being capable of transcending time, space, and matter.
And how exactly do you know that? Because here's the thing. You can't actually prove that your imaginary friend is actually real. This is just a bald assertion that you have no means whatsoever to verify. I could just as easily proclaim that invisible, intangible, universe creating pixies are the only creatures that could possibly transcend time, space, and matter, and anything else you could care to mention. Come on, you can just play along. Just make something up. Oh, right, you already did that, didn't you? How sad.
Let us now talk about the design of the universe.
I'm going to actually expect you to demonstrate that the universe was designed, and I'm betting that's going to be a hoot. Because I'm sorry, I can't just keep going on without wondering what the hell this ridiculous Dutch angle is all about. Are you standing there at a 45-degree angle or something? What's going on? Are you incapable of holding your phone straight in front of your face? Because yeah, it makes you look really stupid. Well, I mean, stupider. Even stupider. You opening your mouth makes you stupid enough. Anyway, get on with your silly claims. We got nothing better to do.
So there is people today who believe in an undesigned, purposeless universe. A universe that was developed by random chance and molecules. But let's look into the teleological argument.
Let's not. Because we're not going to just take your fifis at face value. I'm sorry to break it to you, but we're not. You are actually going to have to prove this stuff, and as we all know right from the start, you won't be able to. None of you can. I mean, I'll give you a chance. I'm certainly going to be fair, but we both know that you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not even going to try. This is all about your feelings. It's not about any identifiable facts. It's not about anything that you can prove. And that's what makes religion so ridiculous. Not like it needs a lot of help. But anyway, go right ahead. We need the laugh.
The teleological argument states that all designs imply designer. The universe has a great design, therefore the universe has a great designer.
Prove it. Just because you can interpret design, and again, he's just trying to get back to his emotionally comforting conclusion that he's already come to because he really, really wants it to be true. But when you just look at the universe objectively, there is absolutely no evidence of design whatsoever. Because the first thing that our intrepid apologist here would have to do is demonstrate exactly how he can identify the hallmarks of design and compare them to things that are not designed so that we can learn to tell the difference. And good luck on that, because creationists think absolutely everything is, by default, designed. How do you compare that to anything else to see if their assumptions hold up? And the answer is, they not only don't, but they don't give a damn either.
So teleology is the doctrine of design and purpose in the material world. If there's design and order in the universe and design and order in you, there has to be an external force outside of design and creation that ordered everything in its direction.
And how exactly did you come to that conclusion? Show your work and your faith doesn't count. Because not only has he not demonstrated that there is any design in the first place, in fact, he couldn't conceivably do that no matter how much he tried, based on his own theology, but then he tries to insist that there's a designer, presuming, again without evidence, that there is some kind of being or intelligence or something else that must be responsible because he's trying desperately to reach his impassioned preconceived notion based not on evidence, but on his fifis. If he thinks this is going to impress anyone, he's got another thing coming.
While some skeptics disagree with this premise on the grounds that macroevolution disproves it, the fact is that macroevolution has never been proven with science.
There is no such thing. This guy is insanely confused. First off, there's no such thing as macroevolution. That's something the idiot creationists just made up when it became painfully clear that they could no longer completely deny evolution. The evidence was just too great. So they just yanked it straight out of their asses so that they could continue to deny reality while not looking like complete dumbasses. Complete. They still really are. Further, evolution has nothing at all to do with the beginning of the universe. These people are all over the place. It's like they don't have the slightest idea what the hell they're talking about. Mostly because they don't.
In actuality, physical and empirical evidence disproves macroevolution.
That thing that isn't actually real. Now, I do a citation needed here, but come on. We all know that the only thing this guy has read are creationist books, Christian websites, and the stupid Bible, and he hasn't got the slightest idea what any actual science is, much less what it says. So here's a helping hand from me to you. Absolutely none of that is remotely true. Evolution is the best supported scientific theory in all of the biological sciences, and there is no doubt whatsoever that it is true. It doesn't matter if you like that fact or not, it is still a fact. Your pathetic fifis don't have a thing to do with actual reality. And speaking of reality, weren't you doing a video on the teleological argument? I thought I saw that somewhere. Maybe you ought to get back to that, because you're just making a complete fool of yourself here.
Whether or not skeptics disagree or agree with this premise, the evidence show that there is a great design in the universe. Therefore, there must be a great designer of the universe.
You know, I just love this. If you disagree, then you're just wrong, because I can't imagine that I'm not automatically right. The level of stupidity in this is just overwhelming. Yet, if you want to go head to head with actual evidence, you're going to lose because you have absolutely nothing of substance to present. I know, I've debated creationists for decades, and never once have any of them ever won. Never once. They all get backed into a corner, they proclaim faith wins all battles, and then they just run away like pathetic little children, tossing impotent threats behind them. This guy, he's no different. He just buys into his religious faith uncritically because it makes him happy. And then, because he's never actually done any independent research, because he's never actually thought about any of this stuff, thinking, not believing, thinking, he just assumes that he's got to be right because that's what makes him feel good. Yeah, not so much.
Now let's just say macroevolution were one day somehow shown to be a legitimate origins theory.
I don't see how, since it isn't an origins theory at all. Geez, how dumb are you anyway? Yeah, don't answer that because it's pretty bloody obvious. This is exactly why trying to have a rational discussion with these people is so completely pointless. They don't know the first thing about science. It's like arguing with a 6-year-old. Well, the 6-year-old is probably more coherent than these people are. This is yet another example of your brain on religion. Just watch it atrophy. It's kind of sad, isn't it?
The ability for self-replicating organisms to arise undesigned from nothing is a logical and scientific impossibility.
Really? Do tell. I mean, you're the one making the claim here. It therefore rests entirely on your shoulders to prove that you've got the slightest clue what the hell you're talking about. So go ahead. Let's debate the subject. I'll do it with one lobe tied behind my back. Well, maybe the whole thing, just to make it a fair fight. Because this is really just pathetic. Stand up straight, learn how to hold your damn camera, and maybe learn something before you put your cockeyed face on YouTube and prove to the world what a complete dipshit you are.
Plus, macroevolution only addresses the what, when, and how, but fails to answer the who and why.
And that's just more assumptions that you're making. Who says there is a who? Who implies a being, and you haven't demonstrated that there was any being responsible yet. That would assume that you actually gave it a shot, and we all know you're not going to do that. Why implies purpose. Prove that there is a purpose. Not what you want, what you can prove. We'll wait, because this ought to be good.
Now, from my understanding,
yeah, there's a problem. You don't have an understanding. You have faith. You have wishful thinking. You want things because they've been drummed into your head since before you could form a coherent thought. Well, clearly, you still haven't reached that point, but You know what I mean. At least I hope you do. I don't know. You don't actually understand anything. Stop listening to the dumbasses in the pulpit and the religious con men that are trying to get your money. Try getting a real education. You know, one where they're not reading completely out of your fantasy book of make-believe. Come on back when you do.
Everything in this universe has a who and why.
Okay, please explain the who behind rain. And I don't mean your imaginary friend. I mean something that you can provide a demonstrable, direct causal link to. Go right ahead. Because this is what happens when you just run on pure emotions and let your brain drip out of your ears. There is no who. There is no why. These are not proper questions to be asking. There is only nature, and nature is doing what nature does. If you'd like to prove me wrong, then by all means feel free, because I can provide evidence that the things that I'm saying are true. And you can't. Keep the words "I believe" and "I have faith in" out of it, because nobody gives a crap about that. Let's see your demonstrable facts.
But atheistic scientist just fails to answer that question. But if you're truly honest with yourself, you'd be able to discover the who and why. But let me give you a little hint. Who created the universe? God Almighty. Why did he create the universe? So that we can know him and worship him, and we can also make him known.
And as is no surprise, you've just embarrassed yourself once again. No surprise there. I'm sorry, but do you know the difference between a bold claim based on your fifis and objectively verifiable evidence that can be discovered and observed in the real world? No, of course you don't, because that's what your problem is. You're just standing there with a Dutch angle making a complete fool of yourself. Because I can do the exact same thing and just boldly assert that the flying spaghetti monster did it. Why? Because I say so. Prove me wrong. And you can't, because you know I'm right. You've got to embrace her noodly appendages. I mean, we can just play the same stupid games as the religious, because these are stupid games, and they're just not smart enough to understand that they're being played.
So that we can be reconciled to him and have relationship with him. So that we can experience the fullness of joy and peace and reconciliation with our Heavenly Father. So the conclusion is that the universe is designed, and so are you. And you have purpose, a very big purpose.
You know, I just remembered something. His video title said he had scientific evidence. Did I blink and miss it, or was he just full of shit all along? Yeah, I'm going to bet on the latter, because that's how it works in all of these ridiculous apologetic videos. They can't figure out what they're doing wrong because they're incapable of intelligent, rational thought on the subject. The second their imaginary father figure in the sky comes up, everything else gets shut down. I mean, how utterly ridiculous is this? And the answer is very.
So don't give up on yourself. God loves you.
Yeah, says you. I say you're out of your mind. I mean, I saw this video go by and I could have ignored it as the rantings of an immature, clearly very young, uneducated twit who's gotten brainwashed into a religious belief system. But I think it's important that we recognize just how dangerous this kind of thing is to everyone. Here's someone who has completely taken leave of their senses at a time when they're supposed to be actually learning about the real world. And this is why they spend all of their time talking to themselves, afraid to go out into the real world and challenge their religious preconceptions. The second that they do, all the faith in the world is just going to go up in smoke because it doesn't make any actual sense. It will never stand up to the light of honest inquiry. And it's why all of these people are making videos for other people who already believe. They're never going to impress anybody else. They're sure as hell not going to impress us. They just leave all of us rolling our eyes at their stupidity and their ignorance and their immaturity. But here's a hint for you, pal. A. Stand up straight. B. Read an actual book on science, maybe get a real education, and don't be continually brainwashed by the crazy crap in your imaginary book. And C. Learn that everything that you've just spouted, it's all ridiculously wrong. You have been lied to. I know you don't care, but it's true. Stop acting like a dumbass online. Grow up and join reality. It might not be as comforting as the silly things that you believe, but too bad. So sad, doesn't matter. At least reality is real, because none of the garbage in your head actually is. It's time to grow up. Give it a shot, because clearly you need it.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.